Hi everybody and welcome to Adobe Live. We're back again. Hope you enjoyed the live stream that we just did with Jeremy Lord. If you missed it or you're watching the replay, go back through the playlist and you can check that out. But we are live, continuing on the same poster brief. So again, if you missed it, we've asked some creators and artists from here to interpret the idea of the word home into a creative poster. And we've been kind of checking in with them as we go along. I'm really excited to have Dale Bigeni back on. Dale, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, thank you. Nice to be back.
It's great to have you back. We had a little bit of a gap in the middle where you spoke at Creative Mornings, which is awesome. So congratulations on that, because I heard a lot
Thank
of
you.
great things about that talk, which is super cool.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was amazing. Good to be back out there in the physical world, the public eye.
Yeah, like seeing people like from their entire bodies, like there's actual
Yeah.
other people like walking around existing in the world, which is cool.
Yeah, not knowing that everybody does wear pants, like, no one's sitting in their undies at an office or something.
Hey man, don't give away my secrets. That's all.
Yeah.
Haven't bought pants in like 5.5 years since the
What
pandemic.
for? Yeah,
Why
what
bother?
for?
Like, I'm
Yeah.
surprised that they even sell pants at full price these days. Like,
Look, at the cost of living, pants is a low priority, I reckon.
it is literally and figuratively a low priority. But that's really cool. So congratulations for that. I wish I caught
Thank
it,
you
but I
very
know
much.
that those talks are usually filmed and then they're online one day. So we'll share it once they jump up. And if you're watching this anywhere around the world, I can't remember how many Creative Mornings chapters there are, but I'll have a look. That's some homework for me while we're doing. But there's something like 150 chapters
There's
around the world.
heaps.
So there's
Yeah.
probably one where you're at. Go and check them out. It's great. Great thing to do. They're free.
Yeah.
But
Get
yeah,
inspired.
there you go. Extra little plug for Creative Mornings. Why don't you?
Yeah,
Um,
you're welcome.
you're welcome, Nicole and Tina. So yeah, let's jump across. We're just going to get straight into it. So we're
Yeah,
picking up
yeah.
where we left off, which I love doing this on Adobe Live because there's been nothing kind of in between. We're just like, if you watch the previous stream, this is more or less where we left off. I think you fixed up, made some alterations to some of the illustrations, like got it a bit further from the sketch that you did live to
Yeah.
like much more precise line work. But I'll let you kind of take it from
Yeah.
there. But we are live,
Yeah.
guys. If you got any questions while we're going.
Yeah, so on that, I guess you guys can see my screen. You can
Yeah.
see that this is kind of literally because of everything that was going on. I kind of arced it a little bit, which is it's always nice because you can see it with fresh eyes. And I'm still very much a fan of it. I don't feel
Yeah,
like
it's
I want
cool.
to change anything, so I'm stoked. Yeah, basically, I'm just gonna talk about some of like next steps and moving forward. So we've covered kind of conceptual and fine tuning and getting it to kind of position where we're 100% happy with it.
Mm.
Um, I briefly did mention just then that I was thinking about like maybe just talking about if I was to take this and make it a full vector illustration, some little quick sneaky tips to get it to into Illustrator and some methods in there. So, but firstly, I'm just going to pick one of the easier ones and probably the plant with the skull with the plant here, and we might just draw this one out and talk about kind of like the process and the methods to getting it into a bit more fine tuned state. So I'll
Yeah.
talk through my tools. If anyone's got questions, fire them off to Flynn. Um, yeah, so I'm just going to make a start. I'm just going to make a new layer, of course, as always.
I always mispronounce these plants, the Monstera.
Monstera,
I just always
yeah.
call them Monster.
Yeah, look, my
Can't help
partner
it.
handles the plant side of things.
Yeah.
So, like, if I got it wrong, it's okay. But I know the thing at the bottom, that's a skull, Flynn. That's a very,
Right. You know,
I,
you know your skulls.
I know skulls, that's about it. All right, so I'm just going to grab the hard round pressure size, the in my opinion the ultimate. So what I will do is just because there's a heap of layers, I'm just going to create a new layer and fill it with white, and I'm just going to use this as like kind of like my tracing paper and just you know fresh layer on top of that one, and then now I can have like my solid black.
Yeah.
I could go through all my layers and obviously turn down all the, whatever, where that skull is. He's probably on a layer in here somewhere, but this is just quicker. So that's just another layer with the opacity turned down. And I'm just going to use that as like my cover sheet. And then this layer up here is going to be we'll call it outlines.
Cool.
Probably would have helped to start naming layers a lot earlier in the process, but Adobe Live.
You never bother when it's like 3 layers, right? You're like, there's a background, there's line work, and then maybe there's
Yeah,
type or something. It's like, it's no big deal. Like, it's very easy to tell. But yeah, once you start having to scroll up and down, going through your
starting.
layers, layer 17.
Yeah, like we're layer 17, but where's 16, 15? Who knows?
Right. Yeah.
All
That's
right,
it.
so this is again, if you've seen the stream and know that part of my process is a lot easy on my Mac because I do use the Wacom. So I'm using a Wacom, the moving, which is it's basically a pen display. And this gives me the ability to really kind of like get more of a natural line in this with the pressure sensitivity. So you can see there's some thin lines, some thick lines, but it does help a lot. But whatever style you're going for, you'll make it work with the tools you've got.
Yeah. And when you're doing line work, because you've got some sketching there that's doing the shading, do you not, you avoid the shading for when you're doing the line work?
Yeah, I probably won't bother with the shading. That's kind of just more or less for me for reference down the track. Like,
Yeah.
but I find with most of my artworks, I'll do the shading there and it'll end up somewhere else. So
Right.
it's more of a guide.
Yeah.
So I'm just using R, like the R key, and just rotating the canvas. I know sometimes people forget that we can rotate the canvas.
Right.
I always try to make sure my hand has a path that kind of like is clear, so I'm not drawing into my hand, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can see the line as I go. Otherwise, like I do get a lot of people say, "Oh, how do you get your line work so straight?" I just keep rotating my canvas until I've got the perfect like path line of sight for my hand to kind of not be distracted or go, "Oh, where is that leaf going?"
Right.
That's
And
a little.
is there also like, do you think about pushing and pulling as well? I know we've
Yeah.
spoken about that a little bit, but could you kind of explain that while we're talking about kind of illustrating techniques?
Well, for me, that whole pushing and pulling technique, it's kind of dependent on the artwork sometimes. I know if I really want to get tapered lines and I use this brush, I can only pull to get it to the taper, and then the push up, I can never kind of like, you can see like it's always like it's right there. It's just not as nice as here. I look the pulling kind of feels more controlled to me.
Yeah.
I feel like it's always more controlled. I think like it's really important in things like illustration and I guess like painting, even tattooing, they vary their pull and push technique, and it does make a huge difference, especially in like tattooing. You see like the line work's a bit cleaner, or it might be a little bit like bolder. But I think that kind of resonates in the way I do it. I kind of want to always have that free line to pull down on, like right here. I'm pulling it back. And it's just like, I think I've just got more control over that way.
Yeah.
And I guess that's up to kind of each person to see kind of like what sits better with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just working through this with it's just a singular brush. I could change sizes and stuff, but it's kind of unnecessary at this point.
So it's all about the pressure.
Yeah, I rely on that pressure sensitivity. I always wonder sometimes like how I would do it otherwise. It's been so long.
Right. I think I remember someone coming on years ago talking about doing artwork, like vector art. I think it was Photoshop artwork, but using a trackpad, because they just couldn't afford one, or didn't have one, or they were a student, or just learning, or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're talking about kind of like copying other people's illustrative style to try to learn the skill, and like cutting back, like on the artwork. So that's where, like, if you don't have any pressure sensitivity for the audience, and you're just doing a line from from here to here, But then to get that kind of thing that Dale's getting by
You would do something like this, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
say you got that, you'd have to go 2 steps and then cut back in and do stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's like graffiti, like spray cans and stuff like that. They do a lot of cutting back still. So
Right.
I think that's what's really cool about like the art as a whole, like art in general. It doesn't matter if it's graffiti, digital, traditional. I love that they all kind of mesh over, and that's why there's these multifaceted legends out there that can just do everything because they just know that it's that one skill applied to many tools,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, the cutback is that's you got to be pretty patient.
Yeah, I think I think they graduated from that and invested in like a stylus at one point. But
You
they were
learn
like,
pretty
it is
fast.
possible. You can get pretty close, but it takes a lot longer and it's, a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I think it's just like a bit more of a process, but some people like crafting things that much,
Yeah.
and there's people like me that are like, I kind of just want to know that I can get it done in a relatively quick time frame, and that's not because I want to rush my work. It's because I think you get to a point when there is a fair bit of build up of clients. You kind of have to work smart,
Yeah.
work smart, hustle hard. That's the way that's what I've always said, and it kind of has worked this far.
Yeah. Like that.
So yeah,
It's worked this far.
yeah, TBC.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
All right, so I'm just kind of getting these lines in, and they're kind of clean, but they could be a lot cleaner. But we want to kind of get at least the outline fully done on this, which I think I can do pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Just a This is probably my favorite part, like the low end detail cleanup, kind of like getting like some boldness to the, because then you start kind of feeling like as soon as those lines are tidied up for me, I'm like, okay, yeah, it does work. That's where I wanted that thing to be.
Right.
And mind you, this is kind of like we're tidying it up, but it's also not the final. So for me, if I was going to do this in Photoshop and leave the whole thing in Photoshop, it would be fine. Like you could kind of work on this a little bit more. I just realized that my smoothing is not on. I was wondering
Oh,
why.
classic.
Yeah, classic. I was wondering why it was just like no number at all. It just wasn't even active.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a bit shonky, so I apologize about
Man, that's pretty good for no smoothing.
that. It started off a bit rough though. I was wondering, I was like, man, is it just a rough morning or
Yeah.
is
too much coffee this morning.
oh man, or not enough?
Yeah. I definitely didn't notice. I think that's a cracking job for no smoothing
Well,
live while
look,
you're chatting to me.
we could probably get away with it knowing that like the leaves are a natural form. They're never going to be perfect. So,
Right.
but if you've got the eye for it, you can see that it's pretty rough. So thank you, Flynn.
There you go. I didn't. That wasn't me. You noticed that yourself, didn't you?
Well, I noticed that I was getting through it. That was about it. I was that grateful for that.
We've definitely done that before, which is why I said classic, because definitely on Adobe
Oh,
Live, have had someone realize right at the end that they've been doing the whole thing, and that was when we were doing like 2-hour live streams
oh man.
during the pandemic, and yeah, they were like, "Wow, no wonder life was so hard for the last,
So, yeah,
122 minutes or whatever,
it's
120
funny
minutes it
because if
was."
you don't use it, you probably don't realize how big of a difference it makes. But just for
Yeah,
those who actually are playing at home, the smoothing tool definitely is. So this smoothing, sorry, not tool, smoothing option kind of keeps the brush just feeling a lot more solid and less kind of janky in parts. Hard to kind of see always, but if you turn it down to no smoothing and you draw a line, it's kind of like still good, but you can tell when you turn it up, it kind of like slows the movement down a bit, and it
mm,
just you can see the difference here. Like it is it's so minuscule, I think, but it's also like really big in the final part of that. So
Yeah.
best to keep it like, you know, on, but not too much that it like makes the lines look a little bit too digital, if that's a thing.
Yeah.
To
You don't want it to be perfect. You don't want to be doing perfectly straight lines or.
yeah, like you want it to feel a little bit natural. So um I will say though, while I'm talking about these lines and how they work and the crossover from Photoshop to Illustrator, I did see Illustrator had a few updates with the live trace. I don't know if they're actually like I've got the version, but I saw that you could fine tune this live trace a lot more now. And when you do it, it's always these lines that have the biggest issue. These thinner
like
lines.
thinner lines, yeah.
Yeah, thinner lines will always disappear or break up and be speckled and stuff. So I know I'm gonna take this into like Illustrator anyway to show just to demonstrate a few things, but how thin I'm doing some of these lines, I already know that they will be lost in translation a little bit. So when using the live paint, because I know a lot of people do it now, just keep in mind that the detail level is important and it can be compromised a little bit, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting with live trace. I think something that a lot of people do miss, if anyone is wondering, is there's an option. I don't know if it's super recent, but it's fairly recent. So I think people miss it a lot. It's in the contextual menu up the top. And when you're doing live trace, it is to use the cloud.
Okay.
And if you click that, it uses Adobe's servers and all of like the latest and not the fastest, the latest and the largest, like local, like what is it, large learning group thing? Anyway,
Okay.
it's just a better version. It takes a little bit longer, so if you're trying to do it, but it's totally worth it because it's like,
okay.
I think I don't want to say a number, but it seems a lot better. So yeah, it's a little bit more like using the Firefly brain instead of just kind of your local machine. So there you go, little tip.
Maybe I should have a deeper dive. I say this a lot on my streams. I'm definitely old dog. Like I know what works for me, so like I'm not ever really looking for like, oh, what's new. Like I love that like there'll be this little change that as an artist you notice and it makes your life easier, but I don't deep dive too much into the program further than the way I've always created art. And I don't know if that's a bad way to be or a good way to be, but I think it keeps me pretty I think grounded and knowing that I'm doing the art the same way I have for so long, you know.
Yeah, totally. No, I totally get it.
And I'm not saying it's not a good thing when they do it, because it definitely, I always stumble on some of it. What do you mean? Okay, so I could have been doing that the whole time.
Yeah, it's like that.
Right,
I think we're all like that to a degree.
Yeah, definitely.
Can't stay on top of everything all the time.
Nah, it's not until you see that one person on Instagram that just blows your mind and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Sorry, I went to college for how many years? This guy just changed my life.
That's it.
All right, so I'm just going to jump over into Illustrator and we're going to have a quick little like just demonstration in case people haven't seen it, in case people want to know. Oh, I clearly would need 3 artboards today. Let's get rid of some of those. All right, so I've got my artboard. You can save that file, import it, bring it in, or I just drag it in. So I just grab my little file. For this demo, we're just going to drag that layer.
Drag and drop. There. Nice.
Yeah, drag and drop. So that's our little... I would use the same... I try to do all of the artworks at the same time, but for today, we're just going to talk about the one because it's just a lot easier. I would say draw all the outlines at the same time because your hand gets into a rhythm. You can keep the same consistency for like line weights and things like that. Because when you do get to Illustrator and you've done like a live trace, if that's the path you decide to take, no pun intended, I think you need to consider that like it's harder to like mess around with lines and stuff, but we'll just go through that now. So I've got my little guy, he's in here. I like to rasterize it. Like, I'm not sure if it helps with the live trace at all, or it's just like a habit that I've always done. But I'm just going to press OK on high 300 here, so you can see that. And just do that, and then I go into image trace. And to tell you the truth, it must have come a long way in a big way, Flynn.
Yeah.
I think because the live trace now is better than ever. I think people still shit on it a little bit, and I think people still think it's copying out. But like, you just saw me draw that whole thing, so there's no need
you feel
to
like
draw it
safe
again.
to be like, that's mine. I did that. I
Yeah,
drew that.
you know, like people are like, oh, you live trace it. I'm like, of course I did. That's why they invented live trace. Like, it's
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what it is. But you can go in obviously, and you can change, like you can create a preset. These are all the standard ones because I just had some tech issues and had to reinstall everything.
Right.
And I lost some of my save stuff presets, but that's fine. You just play around with all the sliders here: threshold, paths, corner, noise, and for the sake of this, we'll just crank it, and you can see the difference. Just got a little bit bolder. Feels like it held more of the lines. Higher up, that looks pretty good to me. I probably wouldn't even change it from there, but you can go in and, you know, play around with the paths and stuff. And, you know, less paths is always good, but not so good on the quality there. You can see it's like made a few square corners and things like that.
Yeah, that bottom right leaf, I think, like you can really see that's like what I would consider like incorrect use of image trace, right? Like that someone else that uses that, there's an artist or someone that, you know, they'll go, oh, that's an image trace. I can tell, like, or there's something funky going on there.
Well,
makes it look unnatural.
Yeah, and it makes it like there's these real like jarring moments. Like if I'm just going to use a circle to highlight this for people playing at home here. So like it does stuff like in there, like you can see, like it hardens this edge for no reason.
Can you zoom in just a little bit as well?
Oh,
that circle's awesome. I love that. I've never seen someone draw a circle to like highlight something on Adobe Live before. It's
there you go.
Cool. I love it.
I wanna. Oh, okay, then I've got everything else.
Out of the box thinking.
Yeah, so I'm like, if you look at that section, and then if I change that, put more parts in, like it's a world of difference. You know, it's I think it's important to like go through it, but also don't kind of lose your head over it. Like I think it's important to get it close, but live trace is it's a helpful tool. I don't think it's your finishing tool. I think it's a next step in your process to creating your finished art. So I would just put oh sorry, I just changed corners for some reason. The more you play with this, the more you kind of get different results. I also like to just ignore the color, and that will just knock out the white. It goes a little bit bolder, like you can see the overall artwork. It just changes in like in weight, and now I can keep it like that because that's probably truer to the art. But if I knock out the white, once I expand it, I don't have to worry about deleting things or having a random white piece that I didn't delete. So I might just, for this, actually, I'm going to leave it like that. I'm just going to do an expand, and there you go. We've got, so it went from, sorry, I'm going to step back one step. So this is our image at the moment in wireframe. So if you do Control Y, you can usually see our paths. Obviously, there's no paths. As soon as we hit expand, we've got all these shapes drawn in.
Yeah. Cool.
So it's super handy. No, I'm not changing anyone's life at the moment. We all know how it works, but like I think it's important to know that like live trace is there as a kind of like an assistant almost, you know. I don't use it as my final tool. And then I'm just getting rid of all these parts, and probably easier is to draw a background, put it behind, and I can just knock out any of the white that I don't need.
Yeah.
So simple. The rest is sweet. So I've got this. I tell people all the time, like I prefer Illustrator. I think Illustrator is just quicker. And I know we watch Jeremy Lord, and he and I have always been Illustrator, Photoshop. I
Yeah.
think we both love all of them, and we can appreciate both of them. He's really amazing at Photoshop. Like I sometimes I think he makes it look too easy, and it's like I try to go do some crazy stuff, and it just like my head just explodes, and I'm like, okay, I'll go back into Illustrator and treat it like a child. It's like color by numbers. So you just
Right.
click on all these. I can go in and just actually let's just do all of them. So I can just click every one of these sections now, and I can just color that whatever I want. Like it's definitely the easiest like way to do it. I think doing it that way is definitely for me. It's a time saver. I usually would do like obviously incorrect colors, but I would use the wrong colors so that I can do a little bit. So if I say these are all going to be, but they don't even have to be incorrect colors. I could do them green, whatever. But I like using this the same color, like selecting the same color. So I'll just choose same fill color, and then I can go in later and start tweaking it. And if all those leaves are the same, it's one kind of like two clicks, select them all, and then build their own layer and have their own colors and stuff. Um, we spoke about the line weight thing. So you saw how the actual live trace kind of blows out a few lines, but it also makes them a little bit thick sometimes. That kind of goes back to that Photoshop discussion before. I would go in, and if it's too like it hasn't quite got there yet, oops, I'm just going to select all the black and actually make another layer for this. So I'm just select any other black, select same fill color, create a new layer. And here, we'll call it black. I don't actually think that grabbed everything.
I'll also say as well, like RB in chat was saying, higher res in rasterizing produces a better trace for detailed art.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good tip, I think.
Yeah. I usually work at 600 in Photoshop in the case that I know that I'm going into Illustrator.
Right. 600
and-
DPI, you mean, like when you're creating a document?
Yeah. So I would just do it at 600 because it just like it comes over just a much cleaner, like crisper kind of trace if you want to do that. But I also think I'm always very project driven. I ask a lot of questions up front, and I'm always very conscious of like where they're going, who's it for, what's its end goal, stuff like that. I think most people are. I'm not going to spend time in Illustrator or Photoshop if it's only for like something that needs to be rendered, embroidered this small. I'll just do a quick little Illustrator APS because I know it's going to be best for the printer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, being project conscious is always really good. All right, so I'll put that black layer on. We're just going to use this back one as a copy. So yeah, we spoke about like the whole cutting back thing. I would do the same thing in in Illustrator sometimes. Or maybe I want like on this leaf, I want a little bit more of a taper, so I could just get the blob tool and I'll go in and start like fine tuning the illustration from here. Like I can see there's a few lines that don't really look that great. I just go into Illustrator, the eraser, and I just quickly tidy this stuff up. And you can see some of those tapered lines just weren't very tapered. So I can go in and kind of cut back into that, like we were saying, and make them neater. But also when I'm doing it, I'm kind of able to go, So to rotate the canvas in Illustrator is Shift and Space, and you can rotate.
Right.
So it's not R. That's one to remember. So when I cut back on this, if I do it and it's not quite, it might look a little bit rough, and every time I've done it, it hasn't. Okay, so here again, we're gonna, oops. I'll just do a little, sorry, Flynn.
You're going to do a little highlight circle for us?
Yeah, just so I know where it's working.
Yeah.
So here, we're going to focus on this little part here
Perfect.
in
I
here.
love it.
Okay, so then I got like, I can use my eraser tool. I can use my pen tool to add. And then once I've got, why is this not closing? Sorry, I thought I had another pop-up somewhere. All right, so I've got the smoothing tool, and then I was just go in there and try to knock some of those little anchor points off to try to get it smoother. And you can see like it changes the shape like kind of naturally, like does its, I guess, calculations as a computer, and it changes it into like all this area now is so smooth. I guess what I'm trying to get at is like your artwork is your artwork. You spend as much time as you want or as much time as you don't want. The results are only going to vary as to how much work you put into it. I think those couple of little hacks and tools like this part over here, I just added the extension, but it's a little bit like not quite what I was thinking. So I can just go in and just cut back on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, say I've got like, oh, I just went too far. I can also get my pencil tool. I can kind of just draw that back in as well. So
yeah, right, cool.
Nothing's ever destroyed, and there's so many like little hints and tips in, little tools and I guess like little hacks that I think sometimes it's a little bit daunting when you open Illustrator and you're like, there's so many like pen tool, blob tool, pencil tool. Like, what's the best thing? Just use all of them. Like, use all of them all the time. Like, the more you use them, the more you're like, oh, well, if I want to adjust this corner in here, where my little, can you see my cursor?
Yep. Yeah, we can see that.
Yeah, so that little corner, say I don't want it to do that little kick out, I can do like, you know, with the pencil tool, I can go in and just change that shape so easy. I do rave and rate the blob tool the highest because I think that's the closest thing to an Illustrator brush where a Photoshop brush where it's got that pressure sensitivity. That's Shift B if anyone wants to use it, and you can go in and change your settings.
I was going to ask if you could change the blob settings to,
I kind of only ever change the size. I never really play around with the pressure. I think it's kind of like automatically set at a good point. The thing is, the most important is the size. So I keep them equal on both sides, and yeah, you can see it's really like pressure sensitive. And it's just the closest thing to feeling like I'm in Photoshop. It does do a couple of like jarring moves on some corners. It might just like not feel like you went circular, but again, you can go in and you can just work on like building back the shape like with the pencil tool or how I was showing you. So that's how I kind of would treat it in Illustrator until I've kind of got a fully complete artwork. But I think, let me get rid of my little highlighter. So moving forward with this one, I'm actually going to just use this black outline. So I've got my outline layer, then I'm going to make another layer underneath. Could do it above, but I always like to have like the master outline just on its own layer. Just lock it with the lock. And again, so you can select how I was doing before, like color by numbers, and select each segment. Again, that's just grabbing the direct select tool, copy, and then I can go paste, and I can have a red skull. So I could do it like that. That works. And this is the part where it kind of crosses over between working in Photoshop and working in Illustrator, but it's kind of the same process. I like using the blob tool, and I like to just like go around and kind of color it as if I was in Photoshop or something, or like naturally like with a pen and paper. Does it help? Is there a point? Not really. It just feels nice to go in and kind of like draw shapes and feel like you're really crafting it, you know. So I would just go around everything and then build up some colors.
Yeah.
What is it? Like a bit of an off color. And then I'd go. I know we're gonna do this black and white, but if I was gonna be doing highlights and shadows and stuff, everything kind of goes on another layer. So I'll do base layer, and then I'll do shadow, and then I'll create like maybe highlight. So if I was doing color piece, I would use this same kind of format, and then I'd probably do a fake layer. I just call it a fake layer, and I just do this, and I just divide each kind of like section into like skull, plant, so that I can.
Oh, right.
Kind of,
oh, that's your little page break line.
yeah, that's like my page break. Yeah. It's just so primitive, but it works. It kind of like keeps everything like, so I know that's the outline.
Yeah.
Below here will be a hoglite. I spelled it wrong.
Hoglite.
It's a bit small down there. All right, so if I was going to do this, I'd just do some shadows. Then I would do eyedropper. Just get some darker tones. Blob tool. Rotate. And I know that this is going to be dark down here, so. And obviously that's under the black, so under my black layer, so I know I can be a little bit rough around the edges there, and it's drops behind, so that's. But you can just, like, if you really wanted to, you could use the direct select tool and do how I was showing you before. What I do like about this is that sometimes when you do that, and I grab a section like that, if I was gonna copy and paste a color, sometimes when you zoom in on it, and I don't know if it still does it, but it used to leave like a tiny little white line, maybe at
I know what you mean,
like a pixel off or something, or I don't know what it is, but it used to have like this white little, so it was always like I was adding a outer stroke on the colors I was doing, so I was almost like doing like an offset thing for, and especially I know they do it when they do screen printing, they kind of tuck the colors kind of like that, so it's like black, and then they might put something a little bit of a offset path to kind of, so that it doesn't bleed through or whatever else. So yeah, I like doing it like this, and you'd be happy to know that they will all get on the same layer.
I think it's an Illustrator like quirk or something. It's almost a ghost in the machine thing. It's like, hey, I remember that you did it this way, so there's a little bit of a line reminding you of it. But I feel like when you export it as a JPEG or a TIFF or PDF or something, it doesn't have that information. It's only when you're in the file. It's quite a strange thing. I've noticed it before with Pathfinder tool or the shape builder, where you, even if you're getting geometric things and you snap. I did it yesterday actually. I was literally had a line, like a dash, like an M dash long line, and I was adding a square to the top, so it kind of went up at the edges. And mathematically, you just do it perfectly. I made a cube. It was the same height and width. Aligned it to the left-hand side, and then snapped it to the top, and then I joined them. And
but you could still see it.
You could, if you zoomed out, it still had a little guideline, like just a pixel, and it was still saying, hey, these used to be two different things and you've joined them together. I'm not sure why it does that, but I know that when I export it as a PDF, it didn't have it anymore.
It's funny you say that, because I too, yesterday I had to make a pattern. So I had these graphics and I made a pattern to make a seamless. So, you know, when you make a pattern, it's got like, obviously you build it in a square and you cut this edge, and then that's how the seamless works. Every time I did the preview, the pattern, I could still see like a top edge and top edge, but when I did an export to PDF, it wasn't there. So I definitely agree. Like, I thought it was, I know that when I do work in here and it's on a black background, then I start zooming out, the further I go, there's this white line or something. I'm like, what? Hang on. I zoom straight in. I'm like doing 3,000.
It's gone.
It's gone. I'm like, I can't zoom anymore, and it's gone.
I think Illustrator just has a long memory or something.
So with that said, there's probably a very low chance that anything's going to go wrong with your file if you do it like this. When I click copy, and I do it just because that is exactly on the line, like Flynn just said. Like I've
Yeah.
placed that in exactly the same place. Like there can't be a gap, and then I just make it white.
It's Command
Then
F, was it, to put it
yeah,
in?
that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Or
that's a
Control
so
F.
copy and then control Command F on a Mac, and it will put it directly in place to where you cut that from.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're kind of my go-to kind of like tips, I guess, like for doing getting things into Illustrator. Obviously, like everything in time and over the course of like creating in Illustrator, the more colors you add, the more stuff you start building. Obviously, it starts like if I just add like a highlight here of this color, like it straight away changes, like
Yeah.
it gives it dimension. Obviously, I'm not here to give you the crash course in like, lighting and principles of design, but the more layers and colors and shades of those two layers, I would only make two layers, a shadow and a highlight.
Mm.
Because then I just start building on top of it because they're going to be separate colors. If I was to use this color, this cream color that we got,
You're placing the light with every stroke there as well. You're like, this is where the light
yeah,
source is. This is
that's
how
exactly
much
right.
volume there is. Yeah.
So yeah, I could do that, and then even though it's the highlight layer, if I was to make a highlight of, let's just for this say there's a highlight of green. Doesn't matter that I'm drawing on the same layer because with this blob tool, it's keeping each color separate. So I know they're highlights, and if I was to do another bit of green here and a bit of green here, and then I wanted to change it, and they're all on the same layer, I don't go, oh, they're all on individual. I just do the whole select, same fill color, and it's on that layer on the highlight, and I just make it white. I won't even take it away from that layer. I'll keep it.
Yeah.
I'll
Cool.
just keep it there for the sake of knowing that if I'm playing with those light layers, that's where I've got to kind of like pick my source color from.
Mm.
So yeah, and it's all about layer building. I think I guess that's Illustrator's forte is like having layers and the ability to stack all those colors, and you get to a point where it is looking like a little bit like, oh, what are all these lines when I'm in this wire mode? Like I've got one here, what is that? But I like that it's that easy in Illustrator to kind of isolate a color, isolate a path or whatever, and that like you're clicking directly on that link and you can make heads or tails of it. Photoshop obviously doesn't have that, where I know you can auto select layers and grab, wherever you click it grabs, but I also find that sometimes, maybe this is just me, but I feel like you might think you're clicking something and it keeps grabbing something just a fraction off, like, it's
Right. Yeah.
it's I'm sure that it's just that I don't spend heaps of time in Photoshop. I love it dearly, but I still I just think controversially that Illustrator is the most powerful of the two. Like I think it's just good, it can take you further, and that's my opinion. I think you can build like a different kind of strength in a graphic. Obviously, if you work too much at it gets a heap of parts, and it starts complicating the file. But
Yeah.
I don't know, it just feels like it still wins in file size as well. So that's an ultimate win for anyone, I reckon.
Nice. I love it.
So
I love
yeah,
the Illustrator advocates are out. RB in chat as well is massive Adobe Illustrator advocate.
yeah, what a legend. What a legend. I like that guy.
Talking about building brushes in Illustrator and stuff. So yeah, super cool. I love
Yeah,
that.
so after I've got, this is just going to be the graphic for right now. So if I've got that and I want to build, like, even if I don't want to build this in Illustrator completely and I still want to go to Photoshop, I can copy and paste this into my Photoshop file. And let's just make a folder called vectors. And then inside of that, I'm going to put, so copy and paste a smart object. There he is. So I'll just put him right on top. Okay, so I know that that's in there now, and I can start, like, obviously when it's a smart object, you've still got full reign on like how big or how small.
Yeah.
Obviously there you can see it starts getting pixelated, but in actual fact it's very clear, and from that side I can go bigger. Oops. And I don't lose any of that like vector line look until I rasterize the layer and it decides to live in Photoshop. I can always go back and say, oh, okay, well, I don't like the brown anymore. I just double click on my smart object, takes me straight to here.
So it just opens up Illustrator for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I say I want that blue. I press save. I close it. Ignore that one for a bit. And it changes it straight away into my file. So it's like I would always keep the vector file, and like I'd have a master folder for all these vectors. So I'd do one of the heart, cat, the skateboard. I'll put them all into like a master folder, vectors as individual assets. And then I'd kind of put them all into place into Photoshop, because then I'd more than likely with a poster like this, I want to give it some like texture and grain and stuff like that. And we all know that Photoshop's pretty good for brushes and stuff like that. I've downloaded a few, but we'll just chuck some of this on. This is a distress, so I can do, and you can, of course, you can do it in Illustrator. I'm sure there's ways, but I can just go in here and I can have some, really push the artwork into like another level again. I guess dimensionally and like give it the texture that it kind of wants. Like I want to feel like it's on parchment, or I want it to feel like it's a traditional artwork. So I just go in here and there's plenty of actions in Photoshop and Illustrator. They all play kind of the same kind of role, but it's nice. Photoshop kind of just still does have a lot of like the things that I wish you could do in Illustrator, and it produce the same quality that I see. But a lot of the stuff that I have been doing lately has been a lot of texture overlays on prints and stuff for brands and stuff, and it's unbeatable to go past like Photoshop for getting those kind of textures and stuff. So I just go in and I literally find whatever brush set you want to use. I use a lot of the ones from True Grit, and that there's a couple in here from Photoshop on hand that are pretty good too, that I'll just go in and add like some textures in here. Whatever the case may be. But it's kind of like the two worlds they play an important part in each other kind of thing, like Photoshop has the power to give you these extra filters and extra brushes and all that stuff, but I just don't think you can go past like bold, strong vector lines, and then having the ability to go, okay, well, I've got this asset now, maybe I'll use this as something else somewhere else. It's always nice, and I've spoken about that a lot, like having the ability to take your artwork and utilize it somewhere else is like super important to me as an artist, especially because I can't tell you a job that I've done where they haven't come back 2 weeks later and go, hey, we need the skull and the plant on its own for something
separate
else.
Totally.
Once you've handed over a file, that's fine, they might pay for it separately, and but you've got it ready to go. You don't have to stress out going, I've got to separate the file
or redraw it, right? Like you're like, actually, it's going to be easy just to redraw over this and remake the asset. It's so much better to be able to go, okay, I'll just take the plants out.
And that actually happens. Like I've been there where you've thought maybe I'll just redraw it, but you end up spending a day of no pay, and you're like, okay, moving forward, keep all assets as individual assets, just in case. So make a master assets folder and have all your stuff in there, and that's kind of the vibe. So I think my task now is to vector everything up and kind of get it all colored and ready to kind of present into this Photoshop poster kind of format, because that's kind of the direction I'd like to take it, where it feels aged but still has the balance of like that solid vector line and things like that. So
cool.
That's the tips.
Nice. That's awesome. I mean, we covered a lot today. It's super cool. I love switching from Photoshop to Illustrator. We've been spending a lot of time in Photoshop actually at the beginning of this year, so it's nice to jump back into Illustrator for like illustration, like digital art kind of side of things. We spent some time there with graphic design, which is how I use Illustrator, like presentations and doing logo stuff, and using Pathfinder and typography and everything. So I love seeing this side of things, and the blob tool as well. Always love the blob tool. I always forget that it creates shapes, like it creates it as a shape. Rather than line work, which I think is like such a big thing to I do forget it. So it's great to see it in action here, where I think it's at its full potential, like doing those big, bold black lines.
Yeah, I think there's something special about like having the ability to control that versus like relying on a automated brush kind of, because it's numbers, right? It's all like calculations and stuff that the computer just assumes.
Right.
This is how it would flow because you've created a brush that kind of tapers and stuff. But like the touch of hand is kind of like the most important thing. Like that's where everyone starts. They will know that if you draw too hard with the pencil, it breaks. And you kind of take that to this level, and it's like, well, if I press too hard now, I'm just going to get a big black blobby mess, whatever you want to call it. It's just so it's kind of look, that was the difference between the two is not far, like that's Photoshop lines, and that's the vector lines. Like if I put them side by side for you, there's really not a heap of difference in it, like that one on the left is a smart object, so I can go in and tweak it. This one is as it lies, like I can't make any adjustments to it in size, because as soon as I blow that up, it's gonna just, if I scale it down because I think it's too big, it looks okay, everything looks like it's doing okay. As soon as I go back to bigger, let's turn this way up, you straight away like start seeing the lines start getting blurry already. Like they already lost like a little bit of their clarity. It might be a bit hard to see, but you can see the lines.
You can see the aliasing happening there. For sure.
Yeah, it's definitely like you pigeonhole yourself if you do it just in Photoshop at size and you decide that's all you want, because the second you have to redraw, you might be redrawing the whole thing. So yeah, vector over raster.
We'll leave that question mark at the end, because otherwise we are going to run out of time for our viewers on Behance. So we will leave it at that. Dale Bigeni, thank you so much again for joining us on Adobe Live.
You're so very welcome, Flynn. Thank you so much.
It's always great hanging out with you. And maybe we'll have you back. Maybe we'll have you back for the final buttoning up of this one. I'm not sure when. We haven't discussed that yet, so we'll chat about that behind the scenes. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us as well, and joining us, and the love for the blob tool and Illustrator, which I love to see.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks, Flynn.
Thanks, Dale, and thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you tomorrow on Adobe Live. See you then.